I love a great vegetable garden, and I love a great vegetable garden that is both functional and beautiful. And I can't think of one that is more functional or beautiful than this one. And it's a vegetable garden that has been carved out of a hillside where the rest of the lot is very wooded. But in this particular location, the homeowner was able to put a vegetable garden in on a site that might not otherwise have been conducive. Well, this beautiful vegetable garden belongs to David and Gloria Allard. David is a well-known architect here in the Nashville area and actually lives just outside of Franklin. How long have you had the vegetable garden here?
These first gardens were built 36 years or so ago. And then the others have been built maybe one terrace at a time.
Right, added on to it here and there.
And now that trying to grow all the food we eat, I needed a sunnier spot.
Right.
And so over the years, I've just been terracing these. So all of the terraces have very enriched soil. So I'm very proud of the soil because it's really easy to work in, even if we've had a horrendous amount of rain.
Right.
Here. I can dig this up and work right now.
Yeah.
I start my own tomato plants, and I'm pretty particular about how I grow them and when I give them away. I think, you know, somebody was here last week and said, boy, these tomatoes are big. When did you put them in the ground? And I told them, really, the 1st of May. I do not believe in putting things in the ground too early. They just sit there. And
when the soil is cold, they won't grow.
They won't grow. So, but tomatoes, my theory or my view is that tomatoes really need to not ever have the roots confined. That if you just I keep moving them into bigger and bigger pots
so that they don't become pot bound before you get them in the ground.
Right. It's not good for any plant.
Right.
But especially for tomatoes.
And what about feeding the plants?
I have fertile soil and I enrich with compost. I actually use Hollytone. My soils test to be very sweet.
Right.
And
on the alkaline side.
Right. And so in order to get a little bit more acidic, I just plant Hollytone as an organic fertilizer, and it boosts the tomato as well as gets the pH.
And I think that's an important point to make. I know that a lot of people just go by the package so much and what it's, you know, what the name of the product is, and really what's important is those 3 numbers that we've talked about on the show so many times. What nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium is in that fertilizer, and then the fact that your Hollytone is kind of for acid-loving plants, so you can help adjust your pH in your vegetable garden by using that type of fertilizer, even though it doesn't maybe say on the package that it's for that specific purpose. It's really about what it does with the soil. So you have several things at work here in the garden. There's mulching, there's all these different kinds of fence panels that you use. Tell me just about how you go about making this garden work for you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I rotate things. So I have basically 4 large beds, and I rotate the tomatoes and the other nightshade families along with then the legumes, and then down here to the cucurbits, all the squash and cucumbers or whatever, and then finally the cool season things down below like kales and cabbages and herbs. And so next year I'll flip those up and then I'll just move down the hill.
So everything each year rotates 1 bed.
Just comes down. It's easy for me to remember, and I can plant anywhere within it. And every bed has a trellis system. I have these panels, and I use them for all 4 groups of things, beans and tomatoes, obviously.
Right.
But I also grow cucumbers and melons and things on these a little bit shorter panels. And they do really well. It keeps the fruit up off the ground. You have to, if you have very small watermelons, like sugar babies, it'll work, but if you get a larger watermelon, you just have to support it with old onion bags work great, or the bulbs of bag. You just slide it in and just tie it on here. And
nylon net bags.
Right. You come in and then it just slips off when it gets ripe. I'm not very obsessive. I'm obsessive about a lot of things in gardening, but weeds don't bother me. I actually, they're getting energy from the sun and they're transferring it into plant material. And when they get to a stage where they start to threaten the plants, I have weeds around this okra now. They're almost that big and they'll grow faster than the okra.
Right.
So about this stage, I'll come in and I'll pick the leaves, and then I just give the thinnings to the chickens. Who love them. It gives them a diversity in their diet, and then it turns them into eggs and compost.
Eggs and compost. So it's really just a big circle of life here in the vegetable garden. So here in the lower part of the garden, at least for this year, in this year's rotation, you've got some cool season crops, some of which are just kind of finishing up.
Yeah.
And others which are just kind of getting ready to be harvested. So the peas are kind of almost at the end for the season this year.
Right. English peas are tough in Tennessee because when it gets hot, they close down.
Right. And then next to that, you have some really magnificent looking onions.
Yeah, I've developed a way to do onions. I plant them in a raised bed about 18 inches high. I just scoop up the soil, make like a little plateau, and then plant 2 rows on top. And then I use the center for a succession crop. I usually plant spinach or a lettuce or something right in the center because you've already got that worked up soil.
Right.
And eat that really young. And then the onions sort of take over. The onions actually like having their shoulders free. They get bigger if they're not buried.
Right.
And,
so they're really just growing right on top of the soil.
Yeah, but they have good root system and they grow in. And I plant onions close together and then thin them and use them for scallions.
And then also over there in that far row, the little bit bluer foliage, leeks.
Yeah, those are leeks. And this is planted a little bit more closely than what I usually plant, but there's leeks and Swiss chard, and those will last after these onions are gone. These onions will be ready to harvest here in 2 or 3 weeks.
And then at the very far edge, you have something that doesn't change location from year to year. That's your asparagus bed there, right along the edge of the wall.
And this is a pretty healthy asparagus bed. This is in its summer form. Asparagus will last, 20, 30 years if you keep it fertilized and ignored. But one of the important things you have to do is let the shoots, after you harvest in the spring, you have to let them grow up and have the foliage through the summer months because that's what nourishes and replenishes the root system for the next year.
Well, obviously with all of the clucking and crowing in the background, you raise chickens here in the garden.
Yeah, I got the chickens primarily as a supplement to the gardens to help control bugs and eat weeds. As it turns out, they really don't do very well in the garden itself. I've tried various ways, but we still recycle a lot of weeds to them. We use their eggs and we use their manure in the garden. And they become part of the family here. So
absolutely. And growing on the structure that they're contained in are these beautiful grapevines. And I even see some little clusters of grapes up in there. So you're going to have a crop later this summer. Do you find that the grapes do well here?
Yeah, the grapes do very well, both here and up along the upper fence. I think I'm a gardener, so there's a place to plant something. I stuck something in the ground.
Right.
But the grapes seem to like it here, and they provide shade for the chickens in the summer, and then it's open in the winter.
Did I also see some beehives?
We started bees a year ago. I'm fascinated by them, though, and have had a moderate success in getting them established.
Okay.
We have 4 hives now.
Okay.
So.
And that also helps the vegetable garden because you're attracting pollinators. The bees go back and forth and you get that great fruit set on the tomatoes and on the fruit trees and all that kind of stuff.
Right. As with a lot of things, the gardening drove the decision to get the bees because I wanted the pollinators. I wanted to do something for the bees because the bees I'm trying to do them very naturally and not manage the hives a lot, not do a lot of chemical treatment, but I've read a lot about it and sort of studied how you can try to keep bees in a way that's the most natural for them so that they can survive without a lot of man-made
intervention. Yeah, sure. Down here at the outside edge of the garden, you have an opportunity to grow a plant that a lot of people in Nashville aren't so successful with. And you have this beautiful sort of low hedge of lavender that hangs over the edge of the wall. How have you met with success here?
Well, one of the challenges of this site was the slopes and dealing with it, but in terracing it allows you to sort of manipulate the soil. So I have a very, very good soil, and I put a lot of sand and compost and things so it's both light and fertile.
Right.
And the lavender here survived a really tough winter, whereas the lavender up at the house in less improved soil did not.
A little more clay.
Again, the soil is so fundamental to everything you do, getting good, rich soil appropriate to the plants you're planting.
And then with the sand and of course this rock face that allows the water to weep out very quickly, and that drainage is probably perfect right here.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of thing that the lavender needs to be successful, and probably also the fruit trees to a certain extent. David, your garden is magnificent. Not just the landscape up around the house, but the vegetable garden is just beautiful. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting us come and take a little time out of your day and show it to us.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. I love sharing what I know about gardening. There's so much to know. As you know, Jefferson said, I'm an old man, but I'm but a young gardener, and you learn so much every time we watch your show or you talk to somebody that knows what they're doing about the garden, and I'm glad to share the little bit I know.
Well, thank you so much.